This week on TGC News, Walther CCP matriculates to Gen 2, Ruger and Winchester on the struggle bus, and OG gun trainers band together to start an insurance company? Tactical Baby Gear offers some of the coolest diaper bags, baby carriers, and day packs for the mom and dad that love freedom. Whether it's the Deuce 2.0 diaper bag combo with the bottle and dump pouches, the Day Pack 3.0, or maybe just the Tactical Teddy, you are bound to find something that works for you and your tactical baby. Also available are the new bulletproof panels that are level 3A Kevlar soft panels that fit inside either the backpack or diaper bag. To get squared away and get 10% off your order, use the code TGC10 at tacticalbabygear.com. Welcome back to another episode of TGC News, the only gun news show that covers things you actually care about. My name is Jon Patton. Now, before we get cracking, in light of all this nonsense about stopping people from downloading code for a legally 3D printed thing like a firearm, check out codeisfreespeech.com.
Can't stop the signal now.
Now, how about some news? Walther has just introduced a second generation of their CCP, or concealed carry pistol. These single-stack 9mm were originally released in 2014, and because TGC News didn't exist back then, I never really dug deeper into what the gun was kind of all about. As it turns out, it has some really interesting features continued from the first gen and some new Gen 2 tweaks. First up, they maintain one of the most interesting recoil systems I've seen on a new handgun in the last 5 years. Attached to the front of the slide below the fixed barrel is a piston. When a round is fired, some of the gas is bled off into a chamber below the barrel where that piston resides, and that gas is used as a sort of damper to reduce felt recoil. That's actually a really interesting idea, especially on a semi-auto handgun. I've seen gas-operated handguns like the Desert Eagle and interesting recoil systems like on the Hudson H9, but this is right up there with them as frickin' cool. I'm sure someone in the comments will correct me and say, this is super old technology and it's been on this gun for blah 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 years, and I don't care because this new one is actually pretty cool. That piston system also allows them to utilize a softer recoil spring, which means the slide is easier to rack overall, and therefore people with disabilities or weakness in the hands may have an easier time with this gun. Beyond that, the gun is just over an inch wide, uses Walther's standard grip shape and texture, which I love, and it has a reversible mag release, 8-round mags, a thumb safety, and now the Gen 2 has a tool-free takedown. You pull the trigger and then push a button on the rear, and that allows you to take the slide off of the gun for cleaning. Being that it is a fixed-barreled gun, the spring also comes out at that point, which isn't as nice as a captive spring, but not horrible if the spring weight is actually reduced, like they say. Heavier springs can be kind of a pain when reassembling the gun. So all in all, a pretty neat gun. The MSRP comes in at $469. If that soft coil system works as well as they say it does, that is not bad value for money. What do you guys think? Is this thing now on your radar, or are you sticking with something like a Glock 43 when it comes to single stack 9mm? Sound off in the comments, and let's talk about it. Next up this week is a new company put together by a few giants in the firearm training industry. Ken Hackathorn, Larry Vickers, Jeff Gonzalez, Dave Spalding, and Scott Reedy have banded together to create Firearm Trainers Association. Now, when I first heard about this, I was actually pretty pumped. The only real, across-the-board standard for training up until now has been the NRA. And let's be fair, those instructor certifications are not exactly complex, up-to-date, or hard to get. So the idea of a new body of standards created by some of the OGs of training would not be a bad thing. I think it could also clear up some confusion for students from instructor to instructor and class to class. As it is, training is cost prohibitive for a lot of people, so being able to know that you are getting the best consistent information possible or something close to that would be awesome. However, when you start digging into what the FTA actually is, all you find everything pointing towards is insurance.
Wait, what?
The FTA existing as a body to oversee training standards would be awesome, but the FTA being an organization that pushes their own insurance is kind of off-putting. It kind of reminds me how the NRA was pushing carry guards super hard. But, and this is a big but,
I like big butts.
when you think about it, liability insurance that is tailored for instructors is not a bad thing. A large part of the fight for gun rights these days is being done by the banks and companies that have a financial part in the industry. Insurance companies that were previously associated with the NRA bailed or have threatened to do so, and there are a lot of instructors who only carry NRA insurance. So what do you do in a situation like that? Get something that's designed for instructors by instructors that has less of a chance of pulling the plug on you. The final decider for a lot of people is often price, so let's compare here. The NRA instructor insurance is $325 a year. The FTA insurance is $400. I'm not going to spend an hour going over all of what each one covers and which one is better than the other, but if $75 is all that separates stability from instability, it's not going to be a bad thing. At the same time, though, calling this anything besides an insurance company is kind of misleading. Now, I know we have some instructors that watch the show, so if you are one of those people, sound off and let's hear what you have to say about all this. Looks like we're back at the Gundustry Bus Depot, and I believe the struggle bus is going to pull out first this week. Looks like Winchester is at the helm. In a recent report of second quarter 2018 earnings, they are blaming decreased consumer sales and higher material costs for the $3.5 million drop over last year's second quarter. I can't say I'm surprised by this when I can't name a single Winchester product that is near the top of its segment right now. Also joining the struggle bus is Ruger. As with Winchester, they are also reporting a drop in sales over 2017 numbers. Oddly enough, almost exactly the same $3.5 million down that Winchester is suffering from. Total sales in the second quarter were $128.4 million, with about 29% of that being represented by new products like the Precision Rimfire, Mark IV pistols, and the PCC, among others. And our next one seems to be waiting in line for a bus, and I can't really tell which one they're going to get on.
Are you coming along?
Mama said not to be taking rides from strangers.
Crossman Corporation, the holding company for brands like Crossman and Benjamin Airguns, Centerpoint Archery, and more recently LaserMax, has announced that it is rebranding to become Velocity Outdoor. They claim in a press release that went out today that this more accurately reflects their growing stable of brands. Now, typically, this isn't a big deal, but when you're talking about bigger companies like this, they don't do things like rebranding without reason. I suspect something else might be afoot, but we probably won't know exactly what's going on until later. I personally wouldn't be surprised to see them expand beyond air guns and archery and get into the firearms market. Time will tell on that one. TAC Pack is an enthusiast subscription service that is focused on bringing you stuff you need straight to your door on a monthly basis. Every month is different, and you can be met with gun parts, accessories, cleaning gear, or even some bigger and cooler shenanigans. And because you're watching TGC, if you use the code TGC Knife, you'll get a free folding knife, TGC Tool, and you'll get a free pocket-sized multi-tool, and TGC Grip will get you a free AR grip. Only when you punch those in over at TACPack.com. And speaking of time, it's time for Friendly Fire, the segment where I answer your questions from all over social media. This week, our questions are coming from YouTube, and I'm going to go as quickly as possible. Here we go. Larry Thompson says, everyone's making 9mm carbines. What caliber would you like to see jump into the mix? That's easy. 50 Action Express. I Have a Toaster says, when is Remington going to be back to the way it was? When someone in charge over there cares about gun owners. Andrew Hammond says, what is the best barrel length and twist rate for a suppressed 300 Blackout? It's a 10-inch, 1-in-8 twist. And Evolution Glitch says, I'm a heavier guy and I want to carry appendix, but it jabs me in the belly. Are there holsters to fix this, or am I SOL? As far as I know, you're SOL. If someone knows of a holster that works for big dudes in appendix, feel free to drop that in the comments. My friendly fire question to you guys this week. What is better for home defense, 9mm, 45 ACP, or 12 gauge? Sound off in the comments below and let me know your thoughts. That's going to be fun. And hey, if you want your question answered right here on TGC News, send it to me over on theguncollective.com. And that is it for this week's show, guys. You know what to do. If you didn't enjoy it, hit that button. If you liked it, hit like, get subscribed, and consider supporting us via the links in the video description below. We have an Amazon affiliate store, as well as a link to purchase cool shirts just like this one. And as always, links to find us all over social media. And as always, always, thank you all for watching. We'll see you soon. This week on TGC, attached to the front of the slide below, that is really interesting. That's actually a really... Let me redo that. That was kind of choppy and weird. No, that's not right. That's not right. That's not right. One more time. I'm not going to screw this up. Start that one over. That did not make sense.
I like 'em round and big.
The shirts worn in today's video on The Gun Collective have been provided by Patriot Patch. Closed captions have also been brought to you by Patriot Patch Company. Be sure to click the link in the video description to check out all of their great products, including their cleaning mats.